Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Chris checking in with another video. I'm from Michigan. I'm an expat living in Germany, and on this channel I talk about everything China and everything Germany. So please subscribe if you like content like this. And I just wanted to mention that over the weekend I have 160 plus subscribers. Thank you so much for supporting this channel, guys. There are 160 plus people on planet Earth that can stand the sound of my horrible voice. So it means a lot to me. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's get into the topic of the video. So I decided to make this video in response to recent events in Guangzhou, China, where many Africans, businessmen, women, and students alike are being evicted from their residences, and this is COVID-19 related.
那感染了光隔离我们，为什么其他的人不隔离？有啊，
全部15楼已经隔离啊，全部黑人隔离。
全部黑人隔离，华人呢？白人呢？为什么你们不隔离他们呀？你们换位思考一下，我们中国同胞也有在国外的，也有在非洲的。如果这个事情传出去，你想我们的同胞在那边会怎么样？你们有想过这个问题？已经讲。我知道哈，你们是按章办事，这个我很理解。
我们都是按照上级的要求来做这里。
So for years, Guangzhou, China has been a hub for Africans. However, amidst growing hostility and xenophobia against the community in China, many Africans have decided to leave the region. And I wanted to wait for the government's response before I made this video, which is this. Please feel free to pause the video so that you can read it in complete, and you can also read the link for this article that I'll post below. But the paraphrased response of the Foreign Ministry Spokesperson Zhao Lijian was that China and Africa are brothers, they take this issue very seriously, and that they do not treat foreigners differently, and that no foreign power will come between the strong relationship between China and Africa. All foreigners are treated equally, we reject differential treatment, and we have zero tolerance for discrimination. So I wanted to make sure that I made clear that this is the stance of the Chinese government before I go into talking about my personal experience in China and how living in China has changed me into the person that I am today, and I will divide those into two parts. The first part will be personal perspective, which is talking about from the first time I came to China all the way up until I left. And then I'll talk into the second part, which is professional. And the professional perspective typically affects everyone. So I have spoken to a few of my friends and I've gotten permission from them to share some of their stories. So I'll just break it down into two pieces to keep it relevant to how life is in China for a person of color. Again, this is my experience. I do not pretend to speak for the entire Black diaspora in China. I cannot. So it's just important to keep that in mind moving forward. In all honesty, it really depends. So the experience of what it can be like to be a Black person in China can vary, honestly, and there are a lot of factors included. So literally for me, from intense staring to being accused of being Obama's son, for example, because, you know, I look like Obama, to rubbing my arms like this in the north of China to see if the skin will come off. I've had that. People questioning my American citizenship because in many ways they've only encountered white Americans, and America is a white country, and therefore it is impossible for me to be an American citizen. So see, these are some of the things that have been said to me on a daily basis when I was living in China the first few times I was there. Particularly speaking, it would be in smaller cities like Harbin, for example, and when I was living on an island in Haikou, in Hainan, an island right next to Vietnam. I worked at a company called H&A. When I would go on the street, it was the first time that people had encountered Black people. So for them, it was an interesting experience. A lot of these questions, as I said, are usually in rural areas, not metropolitan cities like, for example, Shanghai or Beijing. They did happen in Shanghai and Beijing, but I must admit that it was not as often that people would come up to and ask to take a photo with me because I looked like a celebrity, or it had been their first time that they had seen a person of color in public and they just wanted to take a picture because it was just like something new for them. Which, if people obviously asked nicely, I would always take the photo with them. But obviously if anybody walked up to me, and there has been a few times, and like forcibly tried to take a photo, I would never do stuff like that. Like, nah, you have to ask for permission. So many of my friends also can attest to this, that people tend to force themselves into your space, your personal space. I honestly call it ignorant curiosity, because in many ways people In China, you are literally a foreigner or you are Chinese. In most cases, people, they know foreigners as whites, or if they think of the UK, they wouldn't necessarily think of Idris Elba. Or if they think of, you know, the United States, they would think of Beyonce, but some people, they wouldn't necessarily know that she's a black woman, you know? This is my experience, and in conversations I've had in China of people trying to understand my country better. So basically, what are all these idiosyncratic microaggressions, is what we would call them in the United States? What has that done to me psychologically? In many ways, when I was in China, people would ask me, are you African? Or you have to be from Africa, yada, yada, yada. Or people, and the kids in the street would say, 非洲人, which means African. In many ways, I would be really, really upset. I was always like, respect my identity. I'm an American, like I've never been to Africa. Why is it that so many people are calling me African? The peculiar thing about all of this is that in China, if you are a foreigner, people will look at you, they will say what they see. People, if you're skinny, if you're you know, larger, if you're tall, if you have dark skin, if you have big teeth, China, it's a country where people see your foreignness and they will point it out to your face, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it wasn't until my second trip to China that I realized that the anger that I was experiencing was stemming from my lack of grounding in my own American identity. I am a queer, black, first generation, left-handed, gregarious, loud laughing college student and at the time in China who had grown up in white, rural America. My identity was what my educators told me it would be. There was no space for me to celebrate my blackness or my queerness or things like that. And I don't say this to be hard on myself. It just made me more aware of the fact that I didn't have the access to the intellectual food to be able to engage with such concepts when I was in high school. So when I came to Africa and I had my identities questioned, people pointing their fingers at me saying like, you're black, how is it you can be American or black, and engaging with these, I had to answer these questions myself. And I hadn't engaged with these ideas before. Engaging with my identities in China has made me a stronger person. It introduced me to the, you know, thriving diaspora of black people in China. It forced me to address deep-rooted internalized racism. And in all honesty, all the stares I've gotten throughout the 4 years I've lived in China has made me overly zealously confident to walk in this beautiful amount of melanin that I am blessed to walk in, okay? So my advice to someone on a personal level who is black or who is from South Asia, allow yourself to be proven wrong. Do not take my video and immediately come to the conclusion that your experience will be just like mine. Allow yourself to be proven wrong, as I have been. China is a beautiful country, a very, very hospitable and welcoming country. I have learned so much about myself. Be prepared and get comfortable with being stared at. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, especially if you travel to small cities in China. It's inevitable. People are going to look at you. People may come up and want to touch your hair. It's okay to say no. But I would say that allow people to be curious. In my experience, I've taken the staring as an opportunity. It's easy to get frustrated when people are staring at you. But you can also take that as an opportunity to make a friend. It is tiresome. It is horribly, horribly tiring. I understand that. It will be. I've made so many friends like that on the subway. So you can take this opportunity of engaging with people's curiosities and turning it into opportunity to make a friend and practice your Chinese and also learn more about their culture. And you can educate people about where you come from and the demographics of your country. All right, everybody, so the second part of this video is going to talk about the professional aspect of being black in China. And it too varies. I have worked as an English teacher. I have also worked as an education consultant getting Chinese students into top schools in the United States. In this video, I want to focus only on the English teaching aspect, as it's more relatable to everybody who lives in China once one graduates and one looks for jobs, because they're the easiest jobs to get and they're the highest paying. So in a professional sense, this is where things drift off, if you will. And what I mean when I say that is you can get into Peking University, the Harvard of China, but when you try to get an English teaching job and you have a passport from countries like Kenya, Nigeria, India, or Pakistan, or you're just simply black, like I am, in many cases, you're either unqualified or unmarketable as an English teacher to Chinese students and their parents. In other words, you don't look like an English teacher. In China, in many ways, many people associate English with whiteness. English is the language of the United Kingdom. English is the language of the United States, of Australia, or New Zealand. White countries. When you look at Hollywood, the language that the white people are speaking is English. And so when you have English companies in China and they look to hire foreigners, the preference, in my experience, and many other people that I know can attest to this, has always been to white people. I've engaged with companies who have rejected a few of my friends who have certifications in teaching English as well as extensive experience and have taught at schools, top schools back in their countries. They prefer to find a non-native speaker with a thick accent somewhere from a different country. The color does play a role in it. When I moved to China the third time to study at the Yenching Academy of Peking University, a friend of mine who is from Kenya, who studied at one of the best schools in the country, also was going with me to get this job. Now, mind you, she and I both got into the top school in China. We were accepted, we were brought in, we were interviewed, and they wanted us. The lady at the time really wanted us. She was from the UK. She said we would be a great addition. She liked how charismatic we were. She liked our sunshine, our natural sunshine, or however she put it. And she said we were hired. She had already given us our offer, but she told us that we would need to wait until the CEO comes back so he can meet us. But we had already been told that we had gotten the job. While we were there, we met teachers who were from Venezuela. We met teachers who were from Malaysia. We met teachers who were from Russia, for example. We would be the only two black people that they had at the time. A week later, we went back. The CEO of the company, who was from the UK, scrutinized us. He took me in a room and he told me, "It's unfortunate that you don't have the proper certification, so I cannot let you teach here." And he told my friend from Kenya, "You not only don't have the certification, but on top of that, you're from Africa, and I don't know what our students may think." He let us both go. We were really upset about it, and it was honestly even more confusing because this came from someone who was from the West, who too had studied abroad in China, and just so happened to open his own English teaching company, and he rejected us. And I was thinking, you come from the UK, can you do this back at home? I guess this didn't go through his mind, his thought process, when he took back our acceptance, regardless of our experience, regardless of everything. And the majority of his students did not have qualifications. So we would be in the same boat, but the color of our skin was problematic. A week later, I received an email from him apologizing, saying, "I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I added you on WeChat, which is a Chinese Facebook, and I realized that you're an amazing person. You've done so many things. I think you'd be a great asset to my school. If you're still looking for an English teaching job, please do come back." So I went to my friend and I asked her, "Did you get the same invitation?" She did not. She didn't. So to bring this into perspective, it's passport politics. Because if you take away our passports, and she and I both presented ourselves, you couldn't tell the difference between both of us. Having a US passport in China had unquestionably given me more advantage when it came to finding English teaching jobs in China. So I said, no, I did not. I did not accept the job. She and I found a better opportunity. We went about our way, we graduated, and we lived in China, and we lived our best lives. And we're not gonna let a company with such an agenda come between us and our success living in China. So to make it clear, passport politics is a huge factor in determining your success, particularly for English teaching jobs. In many cases, even people from Ireland and New Zealand and Australia and South Africa are discriminated against. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that problematize what it's like to be black in China, and I'll put a few links in the description below, where you have a very qualified person of color ready to teach and can teach, but in many cases they aren't marketable as a white person would be, who may or may not be qualified for the job. So to wrap this up, Rihanna recently gave a speech at the NAACP Image Awards, and I quote her when I say this: "Privileged passport holding foreigners in China, Chinese nationals living in China, diplomats, teachers, businessmen and women, you name it. Pull up. We live in a world where Donald Trump has chosen to refer to COVID-19 as a China virus. Whether it's racism in the United States or in China, it should concern you. Act. Check your privilege and weaponize it when you are presented the opportunity. Because in most cases, the weight of your bullshit calling exceeds ours tenfold. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that everyone can take something away from this video, particularly people of color. If you like content like this, please do subscribe to this channel where I post every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!